Good morning, everybody. This presentation was created and demonstrated by Elliot Morales Pulido, the March of Selma. It's a civil rights movement event that changes the rights of every African American in America. Like we all know, our government is based on the people's voices. And after the March of Selma, African Americans had their voices heard. Who led the march? When and where did it happen? Martin Luther King Jr. and John Lewis were the ones who led the marches. It took them 3 tries to be able to get to Montgomery, Alabama. It was a 54-mile walk to Montgomery. Here is a photo of the people who marched. What happened in Montgomery? The reason it took several attempts to get to Montgomery is because they were forcibly stopped by whites. It wasn't easy to get to Montgomery. Many people got hurt on the second attempt. The Alabama troopers beat the marchers back to Selma. Many people were injured. The Alabama troopers had no problem beating them whatsoever. After this tragedy, it was known as Bloody Sunday. On the third attempt, they were successful because they had the help of the National Guard. In this photo, it is shown how Alabama troopers were beaten to the ground. That definitely wasn't one of the greatest moments in history. Why did they march to Montgomery? The SCLC decided to march to Montgomery because not many African Americans in Selma voted in the election. In fact, only 300 out of 1,500 African American residents got to vote. The SCLC thought that was right, and they wanted to do something about it, so they organized a march to peacefully have their voices heard and protest against the government. The image on the right shows the marchers being led by John Lewis. Organizations. 2 organizations were involved in the March of Selma: the Southern Christian Leadership Council, or the SCLC, and the Student Nonviolence Coordinating Committee, SNCC. Both organizations had experience in peaceful protesting. The SCLC were the ones who thought of the idea to march to Selma to Montgomery, and the SNCC supported them. The SCLC was formed in 1957 by Martin Luther King Jr., Bayard Rustin, Ralph Abernathy, and Fred Schubert. The SNCC was formed in 1960 by Elena Barker. Voting rights. African Americans could in fact vote after the Civil Rights Act of 1964, but not many were scared to vote. African Americans had fear that whites would harm them. Even after the Civil Rights War, African Americans had a hard time voting and doing other things. On the left, it is shown congressmen signing the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Civil Rights of 1964 and 65. Basically, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 did not allow discrimination at all and allowed anyone to vote. A year later, the Civil Rights Act of 1965 was put under the 15th Amendment that no matter what law or rule in their state or town, African Americans had the right to vote. Martin Luther King Jr. Here I have some facts about him. Since he was one of the leaders of the marches, I wanted to give a bit of information of what kind of person he was. There is also a photo of him on the right. John Lewis. He was also a leader of the marches. Here is also some background information about him. On the right is a picture of Lewis. Sites. These are some of the sites that were used in my information. Here are the rest. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope I did not bore you to death. Hopefully you got to learn something new about the civil rights movement. If there's any questions about my presentation, please go ahead and ask me. Thank you very much.